Hi, Apunita here from Huawei Global Training Center. Today we're going to discuss about eNodeB radio data part 12. So let's look into PCI planning principles. PCI planning is applied in intra-frequency networking. Intra-frequency is referring to the same band concept, same frequency band concept. Alright, this is same frequency band. So what are the principles for PCI planning? The reuse distance shall be as large as possible. So this is one of the criteria. Ensure the reference signal in adjacent cell do not occupy the same subcarrier position because it can cause interference during the channel estimation. So this mainly we have to make sure the reuse distance, if you are reusing the distance, it should be large as possible, and ensure the reference signal does not conflict in the same subcarrier. So we have total 12 subcarriers per slot. So basically, you shouldn't make sure that we do not occupy the same subcarrier position. So that is the principle of PCI planning. So CRS. So this one is cell reference signal. Alright, cell reference signal. We have cell ID offset. So the position of the reference signal depends on the PCI. So the offset is equal to the PCI mode 6. So this is an example, PCI mode 0. So reference signal are calculated based on PCI mode 6. So this is PCI mode 8. So you can see the position has changed over here compared to PCI mode 0 and PCI mode 8. So cell reference signal to antenna port configuration. So to implement MIMO or transmit diversity, multiple antenna transmission is designed for LTE. So reference signal will be used to define different patterns for multiple antenna scenarios. So this is antenna port 0 and this is antenna port 1. So reference signal at antenna port 0, the blue color one, and the yellow color one is reference signal at antenna port 1. So when an antenna sends reference signal using the same resource elements, another antenna does not use the corresponding resource elements for transmission. They will never use that. So the position of the reference signal in two antenna scenarios will depend on the offset calculated based on the PCI to avoid conflict. So let's look into cell reference signal for 4 antenna port configuration. To reduce the reference signal overhead, there are fewer reference signal for port 2 and 3. So this is antenna port 0, antenna port 1, antenna port 2 and antenna port 3. So this is a different kind of location settings. So you can see when I compare 2 and 3, fewer reference signals are used 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 compared to 1 and 0. So 1 and 0 I have total 8 reference signal. But 2 and 3 I have reduced. So only got 4 reference signal here. And over here I have total 8. So they are using more compared to the port 2 and 3. Because to reduce the reference signal overhead. So let's look into PCI planning principle modular 3. So modular 3 planning principle divides all PCI into 3 groups. So each group with PCI mode 3 equals to 0, 1 and 2 respectively. Such planning applies to 3 sector sites. So this is an example of 3 sector site, and in 4 sector site scenario, cells with the same mode 3 must point opposite direction. So this is an example. 2 and 2 opposite direction. 0, 1, 0, 2 and 2. So this is 4 sector site. So opposite direction. This one is 3 sector site. So they repeat so that they don't conflict each other. So the position will change actually. So they follow 0, 1 and 2 planning principle. So let's see. Add PCI. So you are adding PCI information into the cell as well. So the value range from 0 to 503. Set this parameter based on your data plane. Maximum we have 504 unique cell IDs. So Q&A session. Modular 3 planning principle divides all PCI into 2 groups. Yes or no? No, this statement is wrong. It should be 3 groups. So the summary of this section, we have learned about PCI planning principles, CRS, what is cell ID offset, CRS, what is 2 antenna port configuration, what is 4 antenna port configuration, what is PCI planning principle modular tree, and last but not least, how to add a PCI in a cell configuration. That's all from me. Hope you enjoy the session. Thank you. Bye.